presto, we see an Ohio State guy on the top of the board there, Jeffrey Okudah. This is no big surprise. So your top 4 corners, we got 3 from Ohio State, Florida, LSU. Those guys seem to show up from those schools each and every year. But Okudah is the guy, and I've noted this at a few other positions, that seems to be the undoubted number 1 corner, lockdown, just that good. So what separates him?
I just think the resume, you look at the body of work, his ability to match up against the opposing number 1 receiver week in, week out. And then he's an all-world athlete. So, and he's got the modern day type, the prototypical size speed combination, can play tight man coverage. And, it's funny because we've been talking Ohio State quite a bit here. I had a chance to talk to Chase Young at the Maxwell Club Awards down in Atlantic City about a month ago. And, I said, give me a guy next year that we should be looking out for. And he said, Shaun Wade, the corner from Ohio State, who he spoke even glowingly more about Wade than Okudah, which is scary. He said, Shaun Wade, mark it down, is going to be a top 5 pick in next year's draft. So Ohio State just keeps churning out these corners. Damon Arnett, another guy there at Ohio State that, has been burned on occasion by the deep ball. But, I think overall he's going to be a solid corner, could be a number 2, number 3 corner at the next level. But, after Okudah, I think there is a significant drop-off. C.J. Henderson from Florida, again, just a big 6'1", 6'2" type of corner, fluid movement skills, coverage ability. And A.J. Terrell, I thought Clemson, to me, he's my number 3 corner after the combine. Not so much from the testing and measurable standpoints, but when I watched Terrell go through the positional work and just his change of direction, his footwork, his back pedal, I'll put that up there against the best of them in this year's draft.
And folks understand that when Shaun Wade left the Clemson college football playoff game in the second quarter due to a controversial targeting play, Trevor Lawrence immediately went downfield on a 3rd and 16, that converted the first down, the targeting, but they had a 3rd and 16 that was a 4th and 16, picked on his replacement, Amir Reep, for a pass interference, and then they scored a long touchdown at Wade's position on Reep. 2 consecutive plays, bam, pass interference, touchdown pass from about 25 yards out. There you go. Shaun Wade's out of the game. Very important there. As Rick tells us, corner, edge rusher, tackle, quarterback. That's how you build a championship team, certainly. Looking at these cornerbacks, it's the toughest position. Do you agree with this? Toughest position to play in the NFL and probably in college football today, the way they throw it at the collegiate game as well. These guys just out there against freak athletes and trying to stay up with them.
Yeah, the way they spread the ball around and spread these formations around, and the RPO offense, just quick reads, quick decision making. It has become very tough, very difficult. And honestly, we talked about, how much are they really passing at the next level? I think it's close to 70% of the time. So essentially, your nickelback is considered a starter. And a guy like Tony Pride Jr. from Notre Dame, to me, is as good as a nickelback as anyone in this year's draft. And he had himself a heck of a week down at the Senior Bowl. So if you want an inside slot guy, Tony Pride Jr. is a good candidate there. And there's a pretty good depth in this year's cornerback class.
I was immediately caught with a comparison of a Grant Delpit, in my eyes, being a more physical safety. And when we talk about corners needing to be versatile in space and needing to do and have so much more responsibility and pressure on them than they used to decades ago, the safeties, you talk about having to be a run enforcer and having to play in space, and not just against tight ends and fullbacks like they used to. Now it's against pretty accomplished receivers. Grant Delpit seems to be a little bit more on the physical end of that spectrum of safeties, and Antoine Winfield Jr. more the ball hawk.
Yeah. Winfield is one of my personal favorites in this year's draft, and I think he's a playmaker. He lacks the size maybe that NFL teams are craving, but at the end of the day, man, this guy is so talented. Even before the injury, when he missed the year or 2 seasons ago, as a freshman or sophomore, this guy was making plays all over the field. Obviously, he's got the strong bloodlines. And, the Vikings, ironically, have a need for a free safety, and they're right there at the back end of the first round. So I would not be surprised if he follows in Dad's footsteps there to Minnesota. And Delpit, to me, I think he's taken a lot of criticism this past year in terms of being able to tackle in space. Maybe that's his biggest flaw and weakness. I think, the criticism has been maybe overkill because, you see where he's been dropped in some of these mock drafts and some of these rankings. I still think he's head and shoulders above the Alabama safety, McKinney. And McKinney, I think, is a very solid player. But I think Delpit is just a better player, a better measurables guy, just built for the next level, and just has that proven resume. I mean, he's really been a big impact player. I think a lot of things that people might get him lost in the mix with that LSU defense. You saw so many guys emerge on that championship run that maybe overshadowed Delpit a little bit, and guys that emerged throughout that stretch run. It's like, hey, remember me? I'm Grant Delpit. I'm a franchise safety. So I think 17 Dallas Cowboys would be a perfect fit. They need a safety there. But, yeah, to me, Delpit, then McKinney, and then you got the small school guys that are so intriguing in Chin and Jeremy Chin from Southern Illinois, and then Kyle Duger from Lenoir-Rhyne. I mean, those guys lit up Mobile and really stated a case for themselves. Chin, I think, could sneak into the first round. Cam Chancellor comparison there. Duger, a little bit older prospect. I think he's going to be 25 by the time the season kicks off. And then for that reason, very hard evaluation. You get this guy, you turn on the film, he's dominating guys at the FCS level, but you say, hey, wait a minute, he's like 25 years old going against 20-year-olds. I think that made Duger a very hard eval.
We got Rick Siratel on the line. Want everyone to keep in mind that we sat down for an hour yesterday, carved through all the offensive positions, including the defensive front as well. So those videos are going to be released soon. So any of the offensive questions I see in the live chat we'll get to in just a second. But those videos are on the way with Rick. When you talk kickers, man, it's just they're not football players, but, man, they can be so important. They might be the difference in 3 games. And in the NFL, that's monumental. And they're expected to be so accurate now, which is crazy. And then the PAT's not automatic anymore. That's a bit of an experience each and every time they line up for PATs now with 3 seconds on the clock in a tie game. Rodrigo Blankenship, he's pretty much consensus number 1 as I see it, and as you have it listed right here. Yeah, he missed a few big kicks. One big one against South Carolina in a loss this past year, national championship game again in 2017. So is there a kicker or two, a punter that kind of breaks the curve and is this year's guy that, kind of breaks the trend and is so good you got to go reach and grab?
I think that the wounds from Aguayo a couple years ago when Tampa Bay traded up into the second round to take him, I think the wounds are still fresh where teams might be a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger that high. Although I do think Rodrigo Blankenship is a pretty solid kicker. And if you need one, I think he does come off the board in the middle rounds. So I think he's our consensus clear-cut kicker. I'll give you a sleeper over at Miami, Ohio, Sam Sloman, who didn't even make the publication, had his pro day workout, I think, after we published the book. But he was kicking 70 yards plus pretty regularly at his pro day workout. Miami, Ohio, one of the schools that did sneak in a pro day. So Sam Sloman from Miami, Ohio, kind of stating a case for himself late. And then, back to that ACC media day, I had a chance to talk to Coach Babers at Syracuse. And he was just ranting and raving about this Hoffinger, Sterling Hoffinger. And so I pounded the table to get him out to Pasadena at the NFLPA Bowl. And he was just booming punts, caught the attention of a lot of NFL scouts. I think he is, him and Brandon Mann from Texas A&M, I think are 2 strong candidates here to get selected on day 3 of the draft.